Okay, so welcome back, students. We are going to go into our next segment by starting our roof plan. Okay, we're going to create a roof plan in AutoCAD, and the focus will be on the hip roof. Although I have gable and hip here, we'll talk about the hip, about the gable, but we won't draw that one. We'll only draw the hip roof. All right, so roof plan. So before we go into the creating of the roof, we will talk about some typical roofing members that exist on a roof. So, starting at the highest point of the roof, and they are color coded. If you notice, I've listed the names over here, and then now we have the colors over here. So, at the highest point of your roof, coming here, this line coming straight down, as well as going across there or across there, is what we would call the ridge board. It's at the highest point of the roof, the apex of the roof. And then I'm going to drop down to the lowest point of the roof, which is not listed over here, but I'll talk about it nevertheless. It's labeled over here, but it's the fascia board that goes around at the lowest point of the roof. If it's a gable end, it goes up and come down. So this roof is a combination of hip and gable. So this end here goes up following the profile of the wall, but for a hip roof, then you would have basically all of the fascia boards horizontal, going right around the building. But for the gable end, it goes up to form like a triangle and come back down, right? Then it goes horizontal. So the fascia board basically is at the lowest part. Then no, one that is not here, but I'll still talk about it, that sits usually in our case in Jamaica based on the way how we construct most of our roofs, is what we call the wall plate. The wall plate is that horizontal member that sits on top of the wall. So it would basically would be on top of the wall going around. And later on, we look at a detail as to where something like that would be, right? On in a section. And then I'll, I'll talk about those rafters now that will connect between ridge board and fascia. So starting with the yellow ones, these are what we call common rafters. So if you notice, it goes from ridge board to fascia board via wall plate. So it will basically sit on top of your wall plate. So those that are perpendicular to your ridge board, then here. If you notice, I also have one right round here, which is not perpendicular to the ridge board. It's actually in line. But that's a special kind of rafter, special kind of common rafter. We call it crown rafter or king rafter, some people call it, right? It is the same length. It is actually interchangeable. I could take this one and put around here, and that one and put around here, and it makes no difference. So they are the same exact size, same cut, angle, everything. But it is not basically perpendicular to the ridge board. So we call it the crown rafter or the king rafter. The one there. And we also have one here. Same as this one. Okay. Now, then we have the rafters that are at the corner. Yeah, going 45-degree angle to the horizontal line and the vertical line. So that's what we call the hip rafter. Now the hip rafter basically would be at the corner of your roof. So the water flows away from the hip on either side. So the water will flow this way, it flows that way. Just like the common raft, the water is flowing down that way. So it will flow that way, right? So this would be like a corner, but an outside corner. Then these know that basically will touch your hip rafter. They're in a different color. Those are called hip jack rafter. Hip jack rafter. So it's basically jacking up the hip. It goes from hip to fascia via wall plate. This one is from ridge to fascia via wall plate. So it's not the same rafter. Okay? So all of these that you see here. Now we have another kind of hip. This one here. It's called a blind or a flying hip. Now this is same thing like this one where it forms a corner, but usually it forms a corner between the apex of one roof and another roof. So you can tell that this roof over here is lower than that roof because the ridge board is here and the ridge board is here. So you need a hip rafter coming down to tie this ridge board to that ridge board. Likewise over here. See the ridge board here, the ridge board here. So you connect the two roofs together using your blind hip. So it's a special kind of hip rafter. It doesn't go all the way down to your wall plate, like how this one goes down to the wall plate and then to the fascia board. It basically connects the two ridge boards to tie the two roofs together. So it's a special kind of rafter. We call it blind or flying hip. Some books will refer to it as flying hips. Some you'll hear calling it um, flying hip. Some will call it blind hip. All right, now then we have this one now that is basically on the inside corner, forming what we call a valley. So it's called a valley rafter. So the water flows towards the valley. Towards the valley, we have a gutter and the water runs out. So while it is flowing away from the hip, it's flowing towards the valley rafter. So this is called the valley rafter. And then those rafters that are tied to your valley, those are called valley jack rafter. So if you notice, you can't just say jack rafter, because you have hip jack rafter, you have valley jack rafter. You have to differentiate between them. Then we also have what is called these now that they don't, because we notice the valley rafter is going from ridge board to valley. So it's valley jack. But these are also touching the valley rafter. But guess what? They're not coming from any ridge board. They're coming from the blind hip. So that one is called a cripple jack rafter. So you have three different kind of jack rafter. You have hip jack, valley jack, and cripple jack. So we have cripple jack up here too, because it's going from blind hip to valley, right? But this one is not a cripple jack rafter. It's a valley jack rafter, because it's going from the valley there, from the hip, it's going from the ridge board going down to the valley rafter. So it's a valley jack rafter. Okay, good. And basically, I think I would have covered all the different roofing members. You can have more, but we didn't put any more on this one. So you can have like what we call a purlin, which you use to tie the roof. When the roof span is very great, you tie them together. And there are other members too, but we didn't go into this. So this now is called a hip end, and this is a gable end. All right. And this is the wall going underneath the roof there, with the wall plate would be on top of that. All right, so I just throw that in. Now this would be the layout of a gable roof in plan, where you would have the ridge board running down here, not necessarily in the center, but in this case it is in the center. So the distance over here, no, this is not in the center, because the distance from here to here is greater than the distance over here. But because this wall underneath and here was used as a support wall, so it was not placed in the center. So the ridge board is basically, so these walls go all the way up, and then the ridge board basically is on top of that, sitting on top of that. So it's still a gable roof, so the water flows away from the ridge on this side and flows on that side. Okay, and what you have following now will be the steps how to draw that roof. So I'm going to skip over all of this, but we're going to be using it for our roof, which is the hip roof. So I'm going to skip over all of that and jump to the hip roof, where we will look at the steps to create that. So I'm going to go all the way down to here. So our roof, because our building is an L-shaped building, we are going to be looking at how we draw the hip roof for this L-shaped building that looks like that. Okay, which basically the layout looks like this. So here we have hip end round here and hip end round here. We have hip rafters at the outside corners, and we have valley rafter on the inside corner. We have common rafters. We have hip jack rafters, and we have valley jack rafters. Now this is where you have the little blind hip, but because it's so short, it's not long enough to get another rafter in between, which would have been a blind hip. So we don't have any blind hip in this roof. right? We just have those other rafters, okay? We have the fascia board running around the building, and this now represents the built up finished material. So later on we look at how you do that. So we have the shingle on top of the sarking, on top of the, so this is the felt rather. So the sarking is at the lowest part, the felt on top of the sarking, and then usually depending on the type of shingle, if it's fiberglass, it does nail it directly to this. But if it is like one of those wooden shingle or those clay tile, you would have the lats, which we didn't put on this. It gets a little crowded, but we'll talk about it later on as well. So we're going to look at how you do all of that. So the steps now, we're going to start the steps to create the roof plan. And if you notice, again, we're going to need the walls, just like we were doing the foundation plan. So it says we are going to copy and paste the walls from the foundation plan. But somebody will say, why didn't we just paste that floor plan, foundation plan wall twice? Because we did it for the foundation plan. We should just paste it twice. Well, there is a reason for that. I deliberately did not tell you to do that because I want to teach you another feature, which I may have mentioned too, and that is to use a feature called isolate. Because when you isolate something, it sets it apart. So that means that's the only one we'll be able to select. So I'm going to isolate the wall layer and then unisolate it later on after I've done the copy. So let's do that first. Go back to AutoCAD. All right. So let's go over to our foundation plan, and we're going to use the isolate feature, which is under your layer panel. Under your home tab, we have isolate. So it says select object on layer to be isolated. So it wants me to select an object that is used in the layer that I want to isolate. So I'm going to select this line. It could be any of those wall lines and press enter. Immediately after that, all other layers are locked up except the wall layer, which is good because that's the only thing I want to copy. So even though I might select that, and you might think, oh, everything's select. No, it's not going to copy them. The only thing that can be copied is what is not locked, because when you lock a layer, it is right protected. You cannot edit it, so you can copy it. So CO, enter, and I'm going to pick a base point somewhere there and pull over. Let me give some space between that drawing and click escape. So here I have the walls. So now that I've finished copying it, I can just go up here and choose the option to unisolate. Immediately after that, all of my padlocks are now open again. So yes, that's the reason why I didn't just make 2 copies of the floor plan, but yes, I could have done it. But because I want to demonstrate how to use the isolate feature. So if you want to copy a bunch of layers amidst a whole lot of others, you don't have to select that object, and select all of them. We just select an object that is using the layer. And you could isolate more than one layer too. I just did it for one, but it could be more than one. All right. So it's faster to do that option than to select all the lines that you want to copy. Just isolate it. All right. So I'm going to set my roof layer current this time. And then I'm going to select the entire building and put it into roof wall, because these are not roof layers. They are roof wall. So they were in wall layer. But I'm going to set my annotation scale to be 1 in 50 so that it will also respond to it. So let me select again, because when you do that, it deselects it. So set your annotation scale first, and then select your walls, and then change it to a layer called a roof wall. And right after that, you will notice that all your lines immediately have been converted to broken lines. All right, good. So now I'm going to have to offset these lines into the properties of roof layer. And remember, we did that since we started the session. So it means that we can just go again. But for those who miss it, it will be O for offset, enter. And then it would be L for layer. And then it would be C for current. And then we're going to work with an overhang of 475, which is what I have on the paper, 475. 0.75, enter. And I'm going to click the outside line and pull outside and click. So there I have my overhang line. Now that represents the outside edge of the fascia. So later on, I'm going to offset 25 millimeter in, but to keep it simple, I'm not going to work with the two lines right now. I'll put in that line afterwards. So let me zoom in at this corner of the building, this end, and then I'm going to now start putting in my hip rafters. So turn off the ortho and use my line command and pick a point at the corner down here, lower left hand corner outside where the fascia is, and pull. And the length of the line is not important. What matters is the angle. So I'll just give an arbitrary length like 6,000. And then I'm going to press the tab key. Do not press enter until you put in your angle, because right now it's 44. Should be 45. So I'm going to press the tab key. It's going to lock the distance in and request the angle, which I'm going to put as 45 and press enter. And then I'm press enter one more time. I couldn't just draw the line down to here because I don't know how long that line is. So I can't just draw the line down. So I need to draw a new line then. So I repeat my command by pressing enter. And this time I'm going in that direction. So again, I'm going to work with the same distance, which was 6,000. But then I'm going to press the tab key one more time. And the angle now would be 180 minus that 45. Remember, the angle is coming from east. So if you take off 45, you're left with 135. Enter. And press enter one more time. So the reason why I could not have drawn the line down, the angle would not be correct. So if you want to be sure everything is all right, once you zoom in, it should pass through here and it should pass through there accurately. If it's not passing through accurately, then something is wrong. The angle is not correct. So what I'm going to do now is to trim off these two lines. TR, enter, enter, and trim, oops, the top portion. So now the length of the line is determined, which wasn't important. I just need to get the two of them meeting. All right. So what you need to know now is that these two lines basically represent the center of the rafter. The hip rafter is not just a line. It has a thickness. And when you're looking down on the roof, you're seeing the horizontal part, which is the flat part at the top. So it's 50 by 150. The 150 is the depth going down, which we can't see in plan. So we need to offset 25 millimeter on either side, since this line represents the middle of the member. So I'm going to zoom in so you can see. I'm going to do O, enter, 25, enter. I'm going to offset this line on that side and this line on this side. Likewise over here, 25 on this side, 25 on this side. Good. So that's where that one is. Now to make life a little easier, what I'm going to do is to select these two middle lines and change the color. There's a reason why I'm doing this, and you'll see later on. I don't want to mix up the middle lines, and I don't want to, it's going to help us to do some wonderful things. So guess what? I'm going to differentiate it by changing the color. So it's still in the same layer. All I'm doing is just forcing the color to be a different one. So I'm going to make it the yellow, right? Just forcing it to be a different color. That's all. Okay? Good. Now, I am going to copy these lines rather than drawing it here again and draw it here again and draw it at these different corners. We have to work smart and not hard. So why not just select all three lines and use the copy command, hold it at the tail of the rafter with your copy command, and your base point is right here. And then now we can paste it at this corner here as one, and we can paste it. Let me close this, pan over, zoom in, and paste it right there. Of course, we can't paste it anywhere else. So we can't paste it there, can't paste it there. So I'm going to escape. So I'm going to select the same line again. But this time around, I'm going to hold it at the top corner. So launch your copy command again, and we're going to hold it at endpoint. And this time around, I can now paste it endpoint right there. Faster to copy and paste than to do that. So I can't put it over here. So therefore, I'll have to escape. Then no, I'm going to select the other 3 lines. Launch back the copy command. So I just press space bar because that was the last command. And this time around, I'm going to choose my base point right there. And then I'm going to carry it and put it at this top right hand corner, end point, and paste it there. Can't paste it anywhere else. So I'm going to escape again, select the same lines, but this time around, I am going to hold it at the lower end. So launch the copy command again and hold it at the base point there. And look at where I'm going to put it this time. I'm going to look for these 3 lines. So I'm talking about these 3 lines here, coming down, and at the end of this middle line, which is why I told you to change the color so we can find them easily. So I'm going to coincide the endpoint of that line with the endpoint of this line. Good. So that now will give you where the apex is. Now I'm ready to put in the middle line of the ridge board. So once I launch the line command and start at the intersection where the 2 middle lines are, come down. If you don't get a vertical line, you could turn on your ortho just to check it. And notice it should run right through that intersection, right? That's how you know it's accurate. So I'm going to snap it endpoint right there. Good. All right, so that's 1. Look where the other 2 is now. So if you notice, I end up with 2 center lines intersecting here, giving me where the ridge board will be here. So I'm going to draw a line from intersection. I don't have intersection OSNAP turn on. So let me go down here and enable intersection OSNAP so that I can get to snap exactly at the intersection here and go across. If your ortho is on again, this should be accurate. Notice it passed exactly through the intersection, but I'm going to snap it right at the intersection there. Good. And then now, again, we have to remember that those 2 lines represent the center of the member. So I need to offset 25 millimeter on either side. All of these rafters, all these members are 50, except the fascia board, which is 25. So I'm going to offset again, and the 25 is already there. So I'm going to offset above and below, offset on the left, offset on the right. And then we select the 2 middle lines and do what we did before. Force the color to be different. And that's there for a reason. You're going to see that later on. Okay, now we have one last offset to do, and that is the fascia board. So O enter, 25 is there. We'll offset 25 this time, not on the outside, but the inside. Click. And basically, that will conclude all of those rafters that we want to work with for the offsetting. We're not going to offset no more lines. We're going to have to clean up the intersections. All right. So let's see if we can just do one set of intersection before we go, because it's now after 5. One set of intersection. So let me go back to the worksheet just to show you what's going on. One person has left us. So we have done that. Then we turn them into, so these are the steps basically in the worksheet. The roof wall, and then we offset our overhang, and then we did the 45-degree angle, the 135 coming around, and we select the 2 middle ones. So the steps are all laid out here. We offset on both sides, select the middle one, change the color, and then we copy and paste them at the corners like that, right up to there. All right. Now, where I want to take you now is how you would get the corners cleaned up nicely. So if you notice, where the fascia board comes down, where the this is the valley rafter comes down, it basically will tie into the the rafter here, the fascia. And likewise, the fascia board out here where the hip rafter is. So above, it looks like that, and underneath, it looks like that. So it's two rafters come down to meet with the fascia board. Valley rafter and hip rafter. So in plan, basically, it looks like this. When the valley rafter comes down, and I'm leaving my center lines for a reason, because that's how the load will be transferred. The actual load will be transferred in the rafter. So it comes down like that, and it hits there, come there, it stop there. Likewise, the fascia board comes down and stop there. So basically, what needs to happen then is we need to trim out this part. So the inside line of our fascia will become the cutting edge, and we trim out that and that. So that's what we're going to do to go all around the roof, and then we call it a day. All right, so let's go over to back to the drawing. I'll go back to the drawing where we can do this in AutoCAD. So what I will do is just select the inside line as the cutting edge. Okay, and then now we're going to launch the trim command, TR for trim, enter, not the shortcut trim, long method where you select the boundary, TR, enter, and then click. So do not trim the middle line. So we're going to trim the two sides of the hip and leave out the middle line. So leave that one, including where you have the valley rafter. So trim these two and leave the middle line. So it's the same thing going right around. So by the time I pan and trim this and trim that, we're dealing with the tail of the rafter now. So the same at every single corner, only the corners right now. When we get back to our next session, we will look at how you treat with the rafters now when they get to the top of the roof. So we're going to trim that and trim that. And then the last corner down here, zoom in, and we're trimming this one and that one. And we are right back where we started. So basically, we press enter, and I'm going to save the changes. And basically, that's where we will stop for this week. Next week, or in our next session, we will look at how you get the rafters up here, clean up nicely. We'll look at how you get these rafters up here meeting properly, as well as the rafters over here meeting properly. And then we will look at how you put in the common rafters, the hip jack rafters, the valley jack rafters, and all of that. And then we will conclude with the roof built up by putting in the hatch pattern and the dimension and text, and the roof will be finished. So hopefully we will do that in our next class. So that's where I am stopping today. If there are any questions, you may ask. Let me just end the recording from now. We'll take questions afterwards.